Twin flames, intense love or emotional trap. Why are we so magnetically drawn to certain people, as if we've known them for lifetimes? Why does the love that hurts the most often feel the most real? And what if your so-called twin flame isn't your soulmate, but your mirror? The idea of twin flames has gone viral, romanticized as a cosmic reunion between two halves of the same soul. It's the promise of a love so intense, so destined, that no logic can explain it. But behind the passion lies pain. Behind the synchronicities, obsession. And what if that suffering isn't proof of something divine, but of something unconscious? Carl Jung never used the term twin flame, but his teachings on the anima, animus, projection, and individuation hold the key to understanding this misunderstood bond, not as a fairy tale, but as a psychological and spiritual initiation. This video isn't here to validate the myths, it's here to break them open. You'll discover why you might be addicted to the person you think is your destiny, and what that says about your soul's forgotten parts. You'll learn how Jung's archetypes shape who we fall for, and why that feeling of being home in someone else might actually be a call to come home to yourself. And by the end, you may realize the person you're chasing isn't your twin flame, but your shadow wearing a beautiful face. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Twin Flame. Myth, a modern obsession. In an age where connection has never been easier, and yet true intimacy feels more elusive than ever, the idea of a twin flame has seduced the collective psyche. You've seen it all over TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. They finish your sentences. You feel their energy in dreams. When you met them, it was like the universe cracked open. It's not just attraction, it's fate. It's not just love, it's destiny. Or so the myth goes. But where did this idea even come from? The popular concept of twin flames wasn't born from ancient mysticism. It surged into mainstream spirituality in the late 20th century, influenced by a mix of esoteric teachings, pop culture, and a deep hunger for meaning in modern relationships. The twin flame isn't just a romantic partner. They're said to be your other half, the mirror of your soul. Sounds divine, right? But here's where things get complicated, because what we call divine union often ends up feeling like emotional chaos. These relationships are usually marked by push and pull dynamics, intense highs and lows, telepathic connections, and a constant feeling of spiritual urgency. People report feeling activated by their twin flame, triggered, transformed, and sometimes destroyed. So the question arises, is this love or trauma dressed as fate? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who mapped the soul with symbols and archetypes, never wrote about twin flames directly, but he warned of a dangerous tendency in human nature to project our inner world onto outer people. When you meet someone who feels like home, you might not be finding your other half. You might be meeting the lost parts of yourself reflected in another. The twin flame myth taps into a deep psychological wound, the longing for wholeness, and instead of looking inward, we chase that feeling in someone else. And here's where it becomes a trap, because the more intense the bond, the more we think it must be meaningful. We spiritualize red flags, we mistake emotional addiction for sacred union. And when it hurts, we say, that's just part of the twin flame journey. But what if we've been sold a fantasy? What if this whole idea that someone else will complete us is the very illusion keeping us fragmented? The digital age has amplified this myth, making it viral, clickable, shareable. But at its core, the obsession with twin flames reveals a much deeper issue, the disconnection from our own inner life. Jung believed that every true relationship is a mirror, not to flatter us, but to confront us. The people who stir us the most are often archetypal figures, surfacing from our unconscious, the inner lover we've never claimed, the shadow we've never faced. So when you say, I've found my twin flame, What you might really mean is, I've found the person who reflects the parts of me I've forgotten how to love. But what exactly are we projecting onto that person? Why do we fall so deeply, so blindly, into the image of a soulmate? In the next chapter, we'll explore Jung's groundbreaking ideas on the Anima and Animus, and how they secretly shape the people we're drawn to and the people we can't seem to let go of. Chapter 2. Jung and the encounter with the inner other. What if the person you're obsessed with isn't who you think they are? Carl Jung believed that inside every man lives a feminine presence, not a literal woman, but an inner image. He called her the Anima, and within every woman, there's a masculine spirit, the Animus. These aren't just poetic metaphors, they are archetypes, timeless patterns embedded in the human psyche. They color the way we love. They shape who we're attracted to, and most dangerously, they influence who we believe we need in order to feel whole. From the moment we're born, we're seeking completion. As children, we absorb images of love from our parents, our culture, our wounds. These images go underground. They become unconscious, blueprints, templates for romance, desire, even spirituality. And then one day we meet someone, and something ignites. Suddenly all the unlived parts of our soul awaken. We say it's chemistry, we say it's fate, but Jung would say it's the anima, or animus, projected onto another person. This is not love in its pure form. It's a psychological phenomenon. We don't see the person as they are. We see ourselves, or more precisely, the missing half of our inner self, reflected back at us. That's why the attraction feels otherworldly. That's why you can't let them go, because you're not just in love with them. You're in love with a part of you that you've never fully met. Jung called this process projection, and it's at the core of almost every powerful romantic entanglement. The anima often appears in men's dreams as a mysterious woman, sometimes seductive, sometimes terrifying, a guide to the unconscious. The animus in women may emerge as a wise man, a rebel, or a divine lover. But when these inner figures aren't recognized inwardly, they're cast outward, onto strangers, onto lovers, and the result is obsession. This is the psychological foundation of many twin flame experiences. It's not that you're crazy. It's not that the connection isn't real. It's that the energy you're feeling belongs to both of you, but especially to you. That's why it feels so familiar. Because it is. The anima and animus are not optional. They're part of the soul's architecture. And until we integrate them consciously, we will continue to chase their reflection in others. Jung didn't say this to take the magic out of love. On the contrary, he believed the encounter with these inner figures was sacred, because when we truly meet the anima or animus and not just project them, we begin a journey into the deepest layers of the self. But here's the danger. If you don't recognize what's happening, you can get stuck. You'll keep running in circles, believing that the other person holds your salvation, when really they're holding up a mirror. So what happens when the illusion shatters, when the person you worshipped turns cold, distant, or cruel? Do you fight for the connection, or finally face the truth? In the next chapter, we'll explore the dark side of projection and how our most intense loves often blind us to what's really going on. Chapter 3. When love becomes a mirror, projection and illusion. We all want to be seen, not just admired, but truly, deeply seen. And when someone finally looks at us with that electric gaze, we start to believe, this is it. They understand me. They complete me. But what if what they see isn't really you, and what you see in them is just a reflection? Carl Jung warned, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But before transformation comes projection. Projection is the unconscious act of placing your inner world onto another person. Like casting a movie on a blank screen, you don't just fall in love with them. You fall in love with your own image, your hopes, your wounds, your unlived life, mirrored back in their eyes. In the context of twin flames, this is amplified. You don't just project fantasies, you project divinity. You assign cosmic meaning to every coincidence. You mistake emotional activation for spiritual alignment. You say things like, they trigger my growth. Our souls are entangled. It's intense because it's real. But intensity isn't proof of truth. Intensity often signals trauma, not transcendence. And here lies the painful irony. The more you project onto someone, the less you actually see them. You miss the red flags, you ignore the distance, you excuse the hurt, because the connection is special. And so you stay, you chase, you suffer, you believe it's part of the journey. But what if the journey is just a loop, driven by your own unmet needs and inner ghosts? Jung believed that relationships are alchemical vessels. They bring the unconscious to the surface. And when love is real, it doesn't just comfort you, it confronts you. But projection is not love. It's a form of possession, where your soul clings to an illusion it can't let go of. You think you're chasing a soulmate, but what you're really chasing is a lost part of yourself. Think back. That person who lit your world on fire, who left you breathless, obsessed, undone, what did they awaken in you? Was it really them? Or was it a forgotten longing? Maybe they represented freedom, or power, or innocence. Maybe they reminded you of a parent's love you never received. Maybe they mirrored your deepest fear, abandonment, unworthiness, being unseen, whatever it is. You gave it to them, and now your happiness is in their hands. This is the trap of projection. You become addicted to an illusion and call it destiny. And here's the hardest part. When the illusion starts to crack, we don't let it go. We double down. We spiritualize the pain. We say, the separation phase is normal. I just need to heal more and they'll come back. But what if they're not meant to return? What if the real purpose of their presence was to awaken the part of you abandoned? This is the turning point Jung invites us to face, to stop looking outward for rescue, to begin the descent inward. But how do you untangle from a bond that feels like fate? How do you walk away when it feels like leaving your own soul behind? In the next chapter, we'll explore the shadow side of romantic obsession and how the myth of the twin flame can become a prison disguised as paradise. Chapter 4. The Trap of Romantic Love, Suffering and Stagnation. We've been told that love is supposed to hurt, that if it's painful, it must be powerful, that if someone breaks you open, they must be your destiny. But what if that pain isn't a test? What if it's a warning? In the mythology of twin flames, suffering is often spiritualized. Silence is seen as divine timing. Abandonment is rebranded as a lesson. Emotional chaos is interpreted as karmic purification. But in Jungian psychology, this pattern isn't transcendence, it's repetition compulsion, the soul reliving old wounds, hoping this time something will change. Here's the harsh truth. The twin flame narrative often keeps people stuck, waiting, obsessing, sacrificing their self-worth for breadcrumbs of connection. It convinces you that the person who wounds you the most is the one meant to heal you. It blurs the line between devotion and dependency, and over time, it doesn't elevate your soul, it shrinks it. You stop living for yourself. You begin orbiting their absence. Every sign, every dream, every moment of silence becomes a message to decode. You call it intuition. But Jung would call it inflation, the ego mistaking fantasy for divine guidance. This is how romantic love becomes a trap. It hijacks your inner world, it floods your nervous system, and it convinces you that your wholeness depends on someone else's return. But ask yourself, is this truly love, or is it your soul screaming to be free? Jung believed that true transformation does not come through attachment, it comes through individuation, the slow, courageous journey of becoming fully yourself. But obsession halts that process. It freezes you in time. You stop evolving. You start shrinking to fit the mold of someone you think will finally choose you. You become a ghost in your own life, haunted by a love story that never fully arrives. Many who believe they've met their twin flame feel stuck for years, not because of love, but because of projection and emotional fusion. Fusion is not intimacy. Fusion is fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of facing yourself. Fear of letting go of the dream. And yet the paradox is this: that very dream, that person you think holds your salvation, they might be the exact reason your soul can't move forward. This is the danger Jung saw. In unconscious love, it doesn't awaken us, it possesses us, it hijacks our potential, it replaces soul growth with emotional dependency, and instead of climbing the mountain of the self, we get stuck worshipping a false god made of our own projections. You think you're loyal to them, but in truth, you've abandoned yourself. The twin flame myth tells you to wait, to suffer, to earn your worth through pain. But Jung would say, pain is not a ladder to love. Pain is a mirror, revealing what in you is still unhealed, still unlived, still unseen. So, the question is no longer, will they come back? But rather, who are you becoming while they're gone? Because what if the love story you're clinging to is the very thing holding your soul hostage? In the next chapter, we step into the fire, into Jung's radical idea of individuation. What if real love isn't about merging with another, but about reclaiming every part of yourself you gave away? Chapter 5. The path of individuation. Loving without losing yourself. There is a kind of love that burns so brightly it threatens to consume everything in its path. We call it passion, we call it fate, but often it's something else entirely. It's the soul starving for itself, reaching for the only mirror it knows, another person. Carl Jung believed that romantic relationships, especially the most intense and destabilizing ones, are not just emotional events. They're psychological initiations. They exist to break you open, not to complete you, but to awaken the parts of you you've left behind. This awakening is not about reunion with another. It's about reunion with the self. This is the path of individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating all the fragmented aspects of your inner life, the child, the rebel, the shadow, the divine, the unloved, the unseen. And here lies the paradox. You often meet your twin flame, not because they are your missing piece, but because your psyche is ready to confront what's been missing within you. The bond, the fire, the heartbreak, it all serves one purpose: to draw you deeper into yourself. Individuation is not romantic. It's not always beautiful. It requires solitude, honesty, the death of fantasy. It asks you to stop chasing love and start embodying it. Most people resist this path. They cling to the dream. They wait for the other person to wake up, to heal, to come back. But this is not soul work. This is spiritual bypassing. You can't become whole by waiting. You become whole by turning inward. Ask yourself, what part of you was asleep before they arrived? What truth did they awaken? What dream did you outsource to them? Instead of claiming for yourself, Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And to become who you truly are, you must stop giving your power away to someone else's presence or their absence. Real love doesn't demand your surrender. It doesn't dissolve your identity. It doesn't say, I'll love you when you fix yourself. It says, I see you as you are, and I am whole. with or without you. The more you integrate the anima or animus within you, the less you chase them outside of you. You stop needing someone to reflect your worth because you've reclaimed the mirror. You no longer seek to merge because you are no longer fragmented. This doesn't mean you stop loving. It means your love is no longer a plea, it's a presence. You may still long for that person. You may still feel the connection, but you are no longer ruled by it because you have made the descent. You have entered the underworld of your own psyche and returned with gold. And now, when you love freely. Not to escape yourself, not to complete yourself, but as one soul to another, whole meeting whole. But if relationships are mirrors, what happens when the mirror shatters? What do we do when the person we projected divinity onto becomes the villain in our story? In the next chapter, we enter the sacred fire of heartbreak and see how the people who wound us most often initiate our deepest transformation. Chapter 6. Relationships as psychological rites of passage. Not every love story is meant to last, but some are meant to change you forever. Carl Jung taught that suffering has purpose, not in a moral or cosmic sense, but in a psychological one. The soul does not evolve through comfort, it evolves through confrontation, through being broken open, and there is no force more capable of shattering us than love, especially the kind that enters like a lightning bolt, uninvited, inexplicable, that consumes your body, your mind, your soul, and then leaves. What remains isn't just heartbreak, it's initiation. In every ancient culture, rites of passage mark the death of an old identity and the birth of a new one. But in modern life, we've lost those rituals, and so our relationships take their place. You thought you were falling in love, but you were entering the underworld. That's what the twin flame experience can be. Not a romance, but a ritual. Burning away of everything false, every mask, every illusion, every part of you that thought love lived outside yourself. You descend into grief, into longing, into despair, and somewhere in that darkness, something ancient stirs, the self, the soul, the watcher behind the pain. You begin to ask, who am I without them? What was I really seeking? What did they awaken that was never about them at all? And here's the secret Jung knew. The person who breaks your heart often awakens your soul. Not because they're your destiny, but because they were the catalyst. They activated your wounds, they mirrored your unloved self, they triggered your transformation. We don't like this idea. We want meaning to feel good. We want love to stay, but real growth is brutal. It burns, it humbles, and that's what the twin flame separation truly is. Not a phase to wait out, but a descent to surrender to, because in that descent, your ego dies, your identity fractures, and your inner work begins. You stop asking, when will they come back? And you start asking, what is this pain asking me to become? That's when the real healing begins, not when they return, but when you do to your body, your path, your power. Jung saw the psyche as a vast terrain filled with symbols, shadows, and sacred wounds. Love opens the door, but suffering forces you to walk through it. And when you do, you begin to understand that relationships aren't just emotional events. They are alchemical crucibles. The fire that destroys you also purifies you. The grief that empties you also clears space for your soul. The silence they leave behind is the space where the self begins to speak. So what if your twin flame wasn't meant to stay? What if their role was to awaken your spiritual memory and then vanish so that you could finally remember who you are? In the final chapter, we'll return to the core myth and ask the question that changes everything. Is the twin flame real, or just the self waiting to be reclaimed? Chapter 7. Deconstructing the myth. Is the twin flame real? We arrive here, where all soul journeys end, not at the other, but at the mirror. After all the longing, the silence, the synchronicities, after all the signs, the dreams, the unbearable pull towards someone who feels like a cosmic echo, you're left with one haunting question: was any of it real? The answer is both simpler and more mysterious than you might expect. Carl Jung didn't believe in twin flames as literal soul splits, but he did believe in the reality of the unconscious and in the power of archetypes, ancient symbolic patterns that move us from within. The twin flame may not be a person, it may be an archetype, an image of wholeness cast onto another human being, awakening your inner fire, but not meant to be possessed. It's not that the connection is fake, it's that its meaning lives deeper than romance. Maybe they weren't your destiny, maybe they were your summons, the soul's alarm clock, waking you up from spiritual amnesia. You didn't fall in love with their ego. You fell in love with the part of you they reflected. That's what the Anima and Animus do. They show us who we could become if we were whole. But projection is a fragile magic. When it breaks, and it always does, we're left face to face with the truth. No one else can complete you. Not because you're broken, but because you were never meant to be completed by another. Your soul isn't a puzzle with a missing piece. It's a flame that forgot it was already burning. So, is the twin flame real? Yes, but not in the way you think. They are real as a symbol, as an archetype, as a sacred rupture in your carefully constructed life. They are the storm that tears the roof off your inner house so the sky can finally touch you. They are the mirror that shows you the beauty and the wounds you buried long ago. They are the invitation, not to union, but to integration, because the deepest love you will ever experience is not the one that takes your breath away, it's the one that gives your breath back. It's the love that returns you to yourself. And that's the shift Jung invites us into, from obsession to ownership, from projection to presence, from searching for them to remembering you. So no, your twin flame might never come back, but something more important might. Your voice, your vision, your wholeness, the love you were chasing was always the love you are. So ask yourself now, was it ever about them, or was it the self disguised as someone else, calling you home? Come home to yourself. So many of us spend our lives searching for that one person, the one who will understand us, choose us, heal us. But what if the one you're waiting for has been waiting inside you all along? The story of the twin flame is not a cosmic romance. It's a psychological initiation. It's the soul's cry to remember itself by any means necessary, even through heartbreak, even through obsession, even through loss. Carl Jung didn't promise in comfort. He promised consciousness. And now that you've walked through the fire, it's time to integrate what you've seen. Soul-level truths to remember. Intensity isn't always intimacy. When someone activates your wounds, it can feel like destiny, but often it's a mirror, not a soulmate. Projection creates illusion, integration creates wholeness. When you reclaim the anima or animus inside you, you no longer need to chase them outside of you. You are not missing a half. You are rediscovering your center. Your task is not to merge with another, but to come home to the self. Let this be your moment of return. Stop waiting for the runner. Stop decoding signs. Stop living for the message that may never come. Instead, live for the self that's already here. Listen to the dreams. Follow the symbols. Make art from the ashes, because your twin flame did awaken something in you. But it was never about them. It was about who you are ready to become. And if you're still wondering whether they were your flame, ask instead, what part of me caught fire when they left? That is where your journey begins. If this message stirred something in you, subscribe for more soul-centered Jungian storytelling. Leave a comment sharing your experience. With twin flames or projection, this is a space for reflection, not judgment. And remember, the love you seek is not in someone else's arms, it's in your own becoming.